Mr. Robinson is not the only controversial statewide candidate in North Carolina currently, which brings us to the Republican nominee to run North Carolina schools, who has tweeted about putting Democrats to death. Her name is Michelle Morrow. Here's one of her tweets. Take a look. It's a doctored photo of former President Barack Obama in an electric chair. Morrow wrote, "Death to all traitors, hashtag Obamagate." Again, this is the Republican nominee to oversee public schools in North Carolina, home of the Research Triangle.
Matt Littman here with MeidasTouch, talking to Anderson Clayton in North Carolina. Anderson is the 26-year-old head of the North Carolina Democratic Party. You're the youngest Democratic Party chair in the country. Is that right?
I am indeed. Guilty as charged, Matt.
No, I just want to get right into it with you because North Carolina is a hotbed of news coverage these days, including New York Times had an article last week saying that North Carolina is more of a swing state right now, probably than even Georgia. But I think, Anderson, from your point of view, you come in at a time when North Carolina has the craziest Republicans running for office I think we see anywhere in the country. What's going on? What must it be like for your Republican counterpart who's running this state Mark Robinson, your education person, the woman who's running for Secretary of Education in North Carolina, she's calling for Joe Biden to be assassinated.
Yeah. That is the unfortunate reality of what we're facing in North Carolina this year. To your point, North Carolina is the swingiest of swing states that we have in the country, in my personal opinion. Joe Biden lost North Carolina by 74,000 votes in 2020. It was the only state in which he came within a percentage point of winning in 2020. And it's why we're so excited to see the effort that they're putting back on the ground this year. And we also know that we've got some, to your point, Matt, right, extremist people that we're running against, especially from looking at our current Lieutenant Governor, Mark Robinson, who's running for our governor's office this year. We also have Dan Bishop, who is the father and the author, right, of the bathroom bill, which was HB2 that came in 2016 in North Carolina. You've got Mark Harris, who was accused of election fraud in 2018 when he first decided to run for Congress then as well. And then you've also got, to your credit, Michelle Morrow, who's running for superintendent of schools, that's not only called for the public execution of President Biden, also President Barack Obama, and also said that the state board of education should not exist in its entirety, period.
Also, I think Michelle Morrow and maybe Mark Robinson, they probably agree on this. They say that celebrities, I live in LA, I guess I know some celebrities, drink the blood of babies. Is that what they say?
Mark Robinson's also said that lizard people are running the government right now, which is, he also is a Holocaust denier. He's someone that has said, and for folks that are listening to this right now that want to learn more about Mark Robinson, because one of the reasons why, and something that folks ask me often is, Anderson, how could on earth people be, in favor of Mark Robinson? He's already been elected lieutenant governor, and it's because folks in my state don't know who Mark Robinson is. And so you can find out more information by going to realmarkrobinson.com. If you've got folks that live in North Carolina, if you yourself are in North Carolina, share that around with folks and let people educate folks about who this person is that's running for the top of the ticket race this year in our state, because it's terrifying, to be honest with y'all.
All right, so let's maybe take it one lunatic at a time. But let's start out with, in North Carolina, like you said, President Biden lost very close, but there's reason to believe that there are more Gen Z voters in North Carolina than there were before, and that's a reason for some optimism. Is that what you're finding?
Absolutely. But I think that what we know, President Barack Obama carried this state in 2008, and he carried it from a younger demographic, right? The voting bloc that he won the majority of was the under 35 actually demographic. And so what we're looking at this year is not only increasing our footprint across the state in all 100 counties in North Carolina, in particular in rural North Carolina, right? We can't lose rural North Carolina anymore on margins that look like 80-20. We need 60-40 margins that are actually getting back and getting local Democrats in our communities active again and out voting again. And plus then utilizing the surplus of folks that we've had moving into our urban communities, really re-engaging college campuses and doing a lot of voter education on those college campuses to let young people know that you can register to vote on your college campus this year, and giving them the tools for that. Voter empowerment is the biggest name of the game in North Carolina. And if we can do that effectively, we'll be able to turn out young people, I do believe.
And you're out of 170 House and Senate races, you're contesting nearly every one of them. Is that right?
We are indeed. We're contesting 168 out of 170 state house and legislative seats this year because we know that in 2018, we broke the Republican supermajority in our state legislature when we contested every seat. And I want to make sure I don't just have a Democratic governor next year. I've got a Democratic governor with some power next year, which means the veto power, the power of the pen that Governor Roy Cooper, who's our current governor that's been term limited this year, unfortunately, hasn't had for the last year because we've had a Republican supermajority in both of our state house and Senate chambers. And so we really want to make sure that we have the advantage to give them that seat.
Okay, so Roy Cooper, popular Democratic governor, right? Term limited, he's out. And then the Republicans, to follow up, can come up with anybody in North Carolina, and they come up with Mark Robinson. And you say that most people don't even know about Mark Robinson. They vote for him, but they don't know that he believes that the government is being run by lizards, for example, or any of this stuff. And part of your job, Anderson, is making sure people know about the crazy views of people like Mark Robinson. Is that right?
Absolutely. And it's why we're already out talking to people on the doors right now. You know, folks, I think oftentimes, especially if you live in a political bubble and you consume news media all the time and you are very active and engaged with politics, I think you overassume how much everyday people are as well. And so for us this year, it's about meeting people where they are. We've launched a year-round organizing program in the North Carolina Democratic Party that's called Project 100 because we have 100 counties in our state, and we want to make sure that we have a county party that is organizing and doing voter registration in each one of them, that's talking with folks about local candidates for school board races, county commissioner races this year, because we really do believe in reverse coattail effects. And we think that when we've got folks at every level of the ballot out there knocking doors, making phone calls, talking to their neighbors about why this election cycle is important, we're going to have up ballot effects for Joe Biden, Josh Stein, Jeff Jackson, Rachel Hunt, all of my folks up the ballot that desperately need that support this year too at the Council of State level and at the federal level.
Okay. And then Michelle Morrow is another person running for statewide office. So it seems like people didn't do their research. She campaigns very hard. People didn't necessarily do their research. And then you have another person who's running for statewide office, who again has these views that are, you know, she does talk openly about assassinating some leaders of this country. She does talk about drinking the blood of babies. I mean, she does repeat QAnon messaging. And yet in North Carolina, which is, you know, becoming a more purple state, has gained residents versus most other states in the country. I think you gained like over 100,000 people last year. Is that basically right?
Yeah, no, we're growing. Oh, I will say though, we're growing in places that it's not just urban areas. Like, so for an example, one of the reddest and fastest growing counties in North Carolina is Brunswick County. I think a lot of people assume that the urban buildup that we have in the state is oftentimes going to be the only counterforce there, and it's not. And so that means that we've got to make sure that the Republicans that are moving down from New York, right, my New York Republicans that are used to having abortion access in their state, honestly, know what Republicans in my state this year have done. Because the type of folks that we're seeing right now, the Republicans in North Carolina are too extreme for the state.
What have the Republicans done in your state on abortion rights?
So last year, 2023, we had the strictest abortion ban that North Carolina's seen come down from our state legislative apparatus, right? We have a 12-week abortion ban, a 10-week medical abortion ban in the state right now, and Mark Robinson would make it a total abortion ban if he were to be elected governor next year.
It does seem incredible that the Republican Party in North Carolina, in a purple state, could be that much out of touch with the people of North Carolina. So is the key there really, like you're saying, going into all of these districts in North Carolina and getting not leaving anybody behind, getting everybody out to vote? Is that really the key?
I believe it is, but I also think that the reason why we have such a unrepresentative government right now in our state is because of gerrymandering, partisan and racial gerrymandering that is legal under our state constitution right now because of our Republican Supreme Court. And the North Carolina Democratic Party is making the 10-year plan, the 8-year plan really to take back our courts, but the 10-year plan to really flip our state legislatures. What Wisconsin, what they took 12 years to do could take North Carolina 6. We've got one seat up on our Supreme Court this year that needs to be held by Justice Allison Riggs, who is a Cooper appointee to our Supreme Court this year. We have 2 Democrats and we have 5 Republicans on my Supreme Court right now. We've got 1 seat up this year. We've got 1 seat up in 2026. That's also a Democrat. Justice Anita Earls is the only Black woman on the bench right now for our Supreme Court. And in 2028, we're taking all 3 of those seats on the Supreme Court that are held by Republicans, and we're utilizing our Court of Appeals candidates to use as a bench building mechanism for that right now. We've got to stop our courts.
So I think, Anderson, what you're basically saying is, for North Carolina, the government, aside from the governor, a lot of people in the government don't represent the people, the majority of North Carolina. And you and the Democratic Party in North Carolina are attempting to take it back in some way that's moderate and in touch with the people's views in North Carolina. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
I like it when you say yes, sir. So then, and then in not often called sir, and then but in North Carolina,
I'm in North Carolina, Matt. We'll change that for you real quick, baby.
I live in Los Angeles. Who's not cursing at me every day? It's a miracle. All right, and then in terms of the president and Kamala, the vice president, have they been going down to North Carolina?
Oh yeah, the vice president has had 10 stops in my state already, and just the time that she's been vice president alone. We are actually going to see them this Tuesday in North Carolina. They're doing an official campaign stop here, and then also another event afterwards. And we're really excited to be able to welcome them back to the state. This is also, from what I have been told, a rare occurrence to have both the president and the vice president in the state at the same time. Yeah, so I feel considerably lucky right now to have that.
On a campaign thing, that's a pretty rare thing to have happen. One more question for you, Anderson, which is there like an ageism thing where people see you and find out your age, and then maybe at first your knowledge is incredible, you and I know that, everybody who works for you knows that, but do people at first, do they have to be convinced that you know what you know because you're the youngest person doing this in the country?
I think so. I think a lot of people need to see, they need to see it to believe it. And they also need to hear a plan, and they need to know that the person in charge of the operation understands what's going on and what the future of the program actually needs to look like. And so I think that I try to do that the best that I can. But I also think that my age is a greatness in this, because I think that I come at this with new ideas and with an energy like none other. And folks oftentimes look at me. The number one question I get asked right now is, do you sleep? And I'm like, yes, I absolutely do. I could not do it without it. So, but if anyone on here is interested in getting involved and helping, making sure that the North Carolina Dems are doing everything that we can this year, you can go to ncdp.org to get involved. Our county parties would love to have any volunteers in North Carolina that are not active right now with them.
Anderson, you're amazing. It's amazing what you're doing for North Carolina. I mean, it really is the swingiest swing state. We really need to win North Carolina. So I just want to say thank you for joining us on MeidasTouch, and we'll be seeing a lot from you this year.
Thanks, Matt.
Hey, Meidas Mighty. Love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.